Hey everybody! So I was speaking with one of the students and realized that some of you might be confusing each other through the discussion boards by giving examples that aren't actually accurate with regards to what is classical and what is operant conditioning. So I know, that classical and operant conditioning, for whatever reason, are very confusing to students. So I thought, in addition to the lectures that I've already put out there, so please be sure to follow those links. I thought I'd do another really quick, brief, just recap of everything you need to know about classical conditioning. Okay, operant conditioning is different, so be sure to check that video out. But this one is about classical conditioning. All right, so first let's talk terms. So here are your standard terms used when talking about classical conditioning. You have the UCS, or the unconditioned stimulus, sometimes also abbreviated as US. You have the unconditioned response, also sometimes abbreviated as the UR. The neutral stimulus, I've only ever seen it abbreviated as NS. The conditioned stimulus and the conditioned response. Now, the standard relationship between these variables is that usually the unconditioned stimulus will automatically evoke the unconditioned response. Now, why does that happen? Well, it could happen because either that response is an instinctual behavior to that stimulus, or you might have learned it in the past. So now the unconditioned stimulus automatically elicits the unconditioned response because you've already learned that association. You then have the neutral stimulus, which it's called neutral because it does nothing to the response that you're interested in. So it's neutral because it does not cause the response, okay? Then you have a conditioned stimulus. The conditioned stimulus is the same stimulus as the neutral stimulus. The only difference is that now, after learning, it evokes the conditioned response. And the conditioned response is the same thing as the unconditioned response. The only difference is that the unconditioned response gets evoked by the unconditioned stimulus, and the conditioned response gets evoked by the conditioned stimulus. So from that, we can look to a couple quick tips. Your neutral stimulus will always, I repeat, will always be your conditioned stimulus. Your neutral stimulus is your conditioned stimulus. They are the exact same stimulus. The only difference between when do we call this exact same stimulus? When do we call it neutral and when do we call it conditioned? Whether we call it conditioned when it starts evoking the response. That's it. Okay? When it's neutral, it doesn't evoke the response. When it's conditioned, it does. Okay? The response, the unconditioned response and the conditioned response are the same response. They're the exact same response. It doesn't change. When do we call a particular response conditioned and unconditioned? We call it conditioned when it gets evoked by the formally neutral stimulus. It's unconditioned when it's evoked by the unconditioned stimulus. Okay? So let's go through a brief example. Okay? Now, another quick tip I want to point out is that when you're talking about, especially for the writing assignment, but also for the discussion post, when we're talking about classical conditioning being done in a commercial, the person who's being conditioned, or the person that the advertiser is trying to condition, is you. All right, they're trying to condition the viewer. Okay, so the response is in you. Okay, so if I'm the viewer, then they're trying to condition the response in me. If you're the viewer, they're trying to condition the response in you. They're not trying to condition the response in anybody else in the commercial. They're trying to condition the response in you. Now, sometimes for comedic effect, they will demonstrate blatant conditioning, but that very rarely happens. So let's do a quick example. So it was a Super Bowl commercial, I think, last year, and I still see it pop up every now and then. It's a Snickers commercial, and in this commercial, William Dafoe is acting as Marilyn Monroe in the famous scene from The 7-Year Itch, where Marilyn Monroe's on the subway grate and the wind blows up and blows her dress up and she's trying to hold it down. Okay, well, in the Snickers commercial, William Dafoe is playing Marilyn Monroe and he's having none of it. Okay, and it's kind of funny. Well, first let's identify what is the response. Well, in any commercial, they're trying to associate, specifically in any commercial that they're trying to sell you something, they're trying to associate whatever their product is with a liking or positive response. Okay, they want you to feel, they want you to associate positivity with their product. Okay, and therefore they're assuming that initially their product was neutral relative to your liking. Meaning, initially they're assuming that you didn't like the product. Okay, if you already do, then they don't need to condition you, and it really doesn't matter. Okay, but they're trying to condition you to like their product. Again, assuming that you didn't already like it. So already we know what the neutral stimulus is. We know that it's the product. Whatever the commercial is trying to advertise for, we know it's the product. Okay, because it didn't initially elicit liking. Okay. Now, in this commercial of William Dafoe playing as Marilyn Monroe, what commercials will often do is try to get you to laugh or feel good, feel hopeful, feel proud or something like that, because they're trying to get you to feel something positive and then associate that with their product. So in this particular commercial, how they're trying to make you feel positive is by make you feel good, is by showing you a funny scene. All right. Now, Snickers has done this before. You know, there was this one commercial where Betty White was playing football with a bunch of 20-year-olds, and you know, getting creamed all over the place. And actually, now that I say it that way, that sounds kind of awful. But it was meant to be comedic. Okay. Well, in the same way, you know, William Dafoe playing as Marilyn Monroe, it's funny. It's meant to make you laugh. Okay. So we've got something that automatically makes you laugh. Seeing William Dafoe as Marilyn Monroe. All right, it makes you laugh. So already we have the response they want, liking, positive emotion, laughing. Okay, and it's automatically produced by seeing William Dafoe in a dress playing as Marilyn Monroe. Okay, so already we know that the unconditioned stimulus is William Dafoe as Marilyn Monroe. Okay? And because we know that that makes you smile, that makes you laugh, that makes you feel good, we know that that good feeling is the unconditioned response. So automatically we know seeing William Dafoe as Marilyn Monroe makes you feel good. And again, they're trying to get you to associate that positive feeling with their product, assuming that you don't already feel that way. So already we know that the neutral stimulus is the Snickers brand. Okay? Now, the hope is that if you watch the commercial enough and you see Snickers paired with William Dafoe as Marilyn Monroe and that makes you laugh, the idea is that eventually you'll come to associate Snickers with that positive feeling. When you can see Snickers and you feel that positive feeling without seeing William Dafoe, well, now Snickers is causing the positive feeling. All right? At that point, Snickers has now become the conditioned stimulus. It's no longer neutral. It's causing you to feel good. All right? You've already been conditioned. So it's no longer neutral. Now it's conditioned. And the response, as you can see, it's the same. Except now, that positive feeling is being evoked by the Snickers brand and not by, you don't have to see William Dafoe to feel that positive feeling. Okay? Now, remember those quick tips? All right, the neutral stimulus is always the same stimulus as the conditioned stimulus. Neutral, CS. Both are Snickers. Remember the second quick tip? That the unconditioned response and the conditioned response are always the same response. CR, CR. Both of them. Positive feeling. All right? So then, this general schematic of UCR making the UCS making the UCR happen. Neutral stimulus doesn't cause anything to happen. See, there's nothing over here. And then it becomes the conditioned stimulus and causes the conditioned response. So this is reflected in this. All right, guys. I know that was quick, but I hope that it helped. Be sure to send me any questions that you might have. All right, guys. Take it easy.